is Mika, the black lab. You're going to see Gummy. This is Gummy. And this is their roadmap to success. Now, we really primarily worked with Mika. We did a little bit of work with Gummy on the martingale and the special twisted leash. Remember for the martingale collar that it goes around both, it should be in both armpits. Sometimes people would cross it this way. So it needs to be in both armpits, and make sure it doesn't drift down into the ribs. It sometimes will. If it does, just adjust it back here. And make sure you always go through the loop towards the dog's head, never go towards this one. Now, she's not using a martingale collar. We just put the leash through this. So if we go through this, if the leash goes on this side, when the leash comes through, it shouldn't cross over and go. It should just go through the loop. But you might want to just get a martingale collar for her for this. And then let me know if you have questions on the rules for a structured walk that we went over, and I can go send you share a video with that. But basically, these dogs, I thought, didn't really have any rules. They didn't have much motivation to listen to their humans, and they probably were a little under-exercised. So we started off by talking about increasing their exercise. Look for different ways to exercise. Fetch is more efficient than running. And so if we maybe have the dog fetch, we have a nice yard here, we throw the ball, and the dog brings it back, sit. And then we throw it again. Remember, don't take the ball away. Hold the treat up against her nose and wait for her to drop. As soon as she drops it, pop it in her mouth and then say the word drop. And after a while, she'll just come and start dropping the ball for you. All right, so play around with her exercise. Get her maybe a different number of walks. And when you're fetching, count the number of fetches that you do. You might find she needs 28 fetches, and then she's a good dog. And if either dog starts chewing or doing something that we don't want inside, that's mischief behavior, that might be a good indicator that we need to come out and exercise the dog a little bit. You might take a dog for a 5-minute walk, or come outside and play fetch, or just run around and chase the dog, or let the dogs play with each other. Playing with each other is good, but it should not be the primary source of exercise. On walks, I like the dog to walk next to the human or behind the human, because for dogs, whoever's in front is in charge. Now, before the walk, remember we went to the door, and we broke down going through the door into individual steps. We also do the same thing with leashing the dog up. Practice leashing the dog up without the actual intent of taking the dog for a walk. And again, I would do it with one dog at a time. Yes, I know. All right, you want to get down? I'll let you get down.
She does this all the time.
So if we try to do it with both dogs together, it's going to be difficult and it's going to be frustrating for both of us. So maybe one person takes one of the dogs out for a walk, and then we practice leashing the other dog up. So remember, the first stage is walking to where the leash is. Anytime the dog walks in front of you, you turn and walk away and sit down. You don't say anything. And as soon as the dog is completely calm, and make sure it's completely calm. The mistake people make is they do it when the dog is mostly calm. They restart it again. This is why we do it at times where we're not planning on going. So if you just have 2 minutes, you do it once, and then you stop, and then you go back to doing your other things. It helps desensitize the dog of the process. So the first stage is just walking to where the leash is, with the dog staying behind you. And anytime it moves in front, you lose interest. As soon as you get to where the cabinet is, potty, or trump, or whatever the word is. We went through potty training in the video above, and we would give her a treat, but right now we don't have it. So, all right, so basically, once we get to where the cabinet is, then we reach for the cabinet. When you reach for the cabinet, the dog's going to start wiggling. Stop and go sit back down again. You want to get to the point where just the reach, you can touch the cabinet and stays calm. And then you can open the cabinet and stays calm. Come here. You have a bigger bark when you're on this side of the fence. We don't want to hear that on the recording. So, and also for your dog, if you go like this looks like you have a treat. Okay? Gummy. Gummy. Sit. So I go in an arc over their head, put them into a sit, and I reach under their chin. Remember, always pat under the chin and say just the command word, sit. And we did the focus exercise. This would be a good time to do focus. Focus, you're such a smartie. She's a smart dog. Okay, so let me see. Going back to the leashing process. As we're walking, sit. Once we get to the point where we can open the cabinet and the dog stays without getting excited, then I would tell them to sit like this. Then open the next time I walk away. Then next time before you open the cabinet, sit. Then I open the cabinet, hold the leash out, and attach it. And again, for any stage along the way that the dog gets excited, we put it back or drop the leash and go sit down, and we wait for the dog to be calm. Eventually, the dog will get boring throughout the process, and that's the energy we want. We want the dog to be nice and calm before we go out the door. The second thing that I wanted to go over about the walking, when I went to the door, I just reached for the door, and that dog started to get up. So I go to the door, tell her to sit, then I start reaching for the door. As soon as she gets up, I pull my arm back, she has to sit, and I wait for her to sit. I don't tell her. As soon as she sits, then I reach for it again. So at first it'd be back and forth, and then I was jiggling a little bit. So again, break it down in individual steps until you can go and swing that door wide open and she stays in a seated position. Because we've taught her the behavior we want her to do. Now we also went through the behavior adjustment training using the leash to teach her to not jump up. It's one of the first things we did. So when a human is coming home, I'd like the human to call and text the other people here so that we can actually put her on a leash, step on the leash, and wait for her to do it. Remember, when we're doing this, if the dog can only reach to here, somebody stepping on the leash, I'm going to stay just like a half a foot outside their reach, turn sideways. The dog's here facing me, I'm facing away, so it's like a T. As soon as the dog calms down and sits, I turn and I start approaching and I start trying to pet. As soon as it gets up, I turn away and I stand up. So what I'm saying is the only way I'm going to pet you, sit, is when she offers a good behavior like that. And because we can move just right outside the dog's reach, it gives us the opportunity to practice this a whole bunch. At first the dog's going to be frustrated, but after a while you should start seeing the dog sitting faster and faster on their own accord, and that's exactly what we're looking to accomplish. Now you can see her leg is shaking a little bit. When she gets excited or nervous, she shakes a little bit. Remember, anything our dog is doing when we pet it is what we're reinforcing. This includes excitement. So if we come home or Dad comes home and she's all excited and we pet her, we're going to make her more excited the next time. So instead, we're going to do that leash trick, or if we don't do the leash trick, maybe nobody else is home, when we come home, we're just going to ignore the dogs completely. Don't talk to them, don't correct them, don't do anything, just ignore, walk as if they're not even there. And eventually the dogs, when they settle down, then you start engaging with them. Again, the only way I'm going to be interested in playing with you is if you're calm. Let me see, remember to tell your neighbor next door, is this the same neighbor? This is a different neighbor.
Yeah.
So if you have a dog that barks like this, if you're always check with the guardian first, but the dog is saying, I disagree with you being there for whatever reason. Well, if every time you come out the dog barks, it's trying to get you to go away, well, we could create a positive association. When the dog barks, if the neighbor is okay with it and the dog doesn't have allergies, and there's only one dog, if it's two, it could cause a fight. Then I walk to the fence and I toss a treat over it, then I walk away. So there's like, every time they come in their backyard, I get steak falling from the sky. Can we get them to have a fiesta in their backyard? And so, again, we're just creating a situation where the dog is positive and enjoying what we have going on. Now remember, for petting, we want to pet with a purpose. So if the dog nudges me or scratches me, jumps up at me, or puts its chin on me in a cute way, it's telling me what to do. If I pet it, it's rewarding it. So instead, I can give it a command order, sit. Come here. Sit. Sit. So I can keep her attention and keep her in a seat by not giving her the treat anyway. Sit. So remember, we only going to say the command word, sit, down, whatever it is. So she's sitting, I'm going to pet her under her chin and say the word sit. Remember, try to do it under the chin, never pet on top of the head. Well, we can scratch the butt too, but if all things are equal, scratch under the chin. And don't say good sit, don't say the dog's name, just say just sit or just come or whatever it is. That leads, yes, there we go. We got a Trump going over there, a big Trump. Trump means go to the bathroom. So the other one we want to use is passive training. So every time the dog comes to us on its own, we're going to pet it and say come. Every time the dog sits on its own, we're going to pet it and say sit. We're just going to recognize the things the dog does that we like, that we want it to repeat. After a while, the dog's going to come and start sitting in front of us for petting with a purpose, or like right here, come. Then she gets to go do her own thing, even if she's just passing by. Just give her a scratch as she runs by. The end result is all we're looking for, and we're associating the action of coming to me with the word come. And if you guys get in the habit of petting with a purpose and passive training, every time you pet your dog, or you're basically training your dog to do whatever a positive thing. Remember, anything your dog does. So if your dog stretches, you want to pet it teach it to stretch, pet it and say stretch. Let me see. For feeding, I'd like the guardians to start feeding the dogs separately, one at a time, and the human who's feeding them should eat first. Just something at 5 or more bites. Right now, the dogs are only eating, I think, lunch and dinner, and that's ideal, not ideal. We'd like to have them eating breakfast and dinner, or breakfast and lunch if necessary, but I would prefer breakfast and dinner. I think because of the pooping in the house, I think that, like we talked about in the video that we did on potty training, I think part of it is she just can't hold it, and she's because she's being fed so late, she has to poop during the day when she's inside and she can't, or she has no other alternative. So changing the time that you feed can have a big impact on that. And also, fetch. Whoops, sorry, buddy. Fetch. So she likes to fetch like this. Fetch. 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 That's okay. Don't go. And Dad was going to be nice and go get it. But if I want her to teach her, she has to be the one to do it. If anybody else does it, then they're doing her work for her. So if she likes to fetch like that, I call this riding the wave. If she brings you that, fetch her as long as she wants to do it, because she's not a traditional fetching breed. But if you can teach her to fetch, fetch is a wonderful way to burn energy. And I think a lot of the dog's nuisance behaviors are resulted of not having enough exercise. Okay, so petting with a purpose and passive training is going to take the humans about a month to get into a habit of doing that. Come. Now remember, we went through 3 watchwords. Paycheck just means I suspect you may have forgotten to pet with a purpose. So we stop petting, and we just tell the dog to sit, sit, sit. And then we can tell the other person whatever we want to say. Or I asked her to sit, she stood up when you came. Second thing is vocabulary. So if the dog comes to me, I say, come here. Somebody would say vocabulary, I say, come. So we're only going to use 1 command word. So the family should make a list of the command words and exclusively use 1 command word for each. If we want to give the dogs a different command word for eating, then when she takes her first bite, maybe we say feast. When she takes her first bite, maybe we say grub or comida or whatever word is we want to make. That way the dog has its own unique command word. Let me see. And then the last watch word is reward. So if somebody says reward to me, I look at the dog, and whatever the dog is, come. If it's standing, I assume it just came to me. If it's sitting, I assume it's sitting. So reward just means somebody is just pointing out you are missing an opportunity to reward the dog. Come. This is passive training. And then I can pet the dog for an hour after this. Or if I tell the dog to sit, I can pet it for an hour. I just have to ask the dog to do something first, or have the dog pre-pet. Remember, use that hand motion. Sit. Yes. And if I'm petting her and she comes up, if she wants the attention, I would hook her by the collar and keep her over here and give Gummy as much attention as I want. If she protests when I get done petting Gummy, I don't pet her at all. If she didn't protest when I get done petting Gummy, I give her my full attention. Let me see some other things. Always follow through. Don't walk around your dog, walk through your dog, so your dogs learn to get out of the human's way as opposed to thinking that they're in charge of the humans. Remember to get up and burn the energy. So if the dog is barking at the mailman and we don't say anything, we're saying that that's okay with us. Now the better thing to do is, again, try to time it out. On a weekend, you know when the mailman is going to come approximately. So when that's the case, open the door. Make sure you're not watching TV and wait for the mailman. Have somebody sitting outside. Oh, the truck, he's coming 3 houses away. Now you're ready, come. And then we can use the hiss to correct the dog before it starts barking. If it continues, we stand up. If it continues, we walk to the door, put our butt to the door, and walk towards the dog using the third escalating consequence to move it away. And now the other thing you could do is when the mail person comes, you could drop treats on the floor and create a positive association like I talked about throwing over the fence. Let me see. Am I forgetting anything? I'm probably forgetting a lot of things. I want the guardians to call me or text me if they have any questions. I will be somewhere where I'm not sitting outside. I'm going to the Midwest in a week, and I'll be there for a couple weeks. So I would like a call from California. All right, Gummy, what do you say? Gummy. Oh, on the walks, carry a bunch of treats with you. In between every other house, tell her to sit, give her the treat and say sit. Remember, the treat goes in the mouth first, then we hear the command word afterwards, and then we continue walking. So if she just thinks every time the human stops, if I sit down, I get a treat, she'll start watching you instead of watching what else is going around. And then when you stop and you talk to the neighbors, and they're like, oh my God, your dog is so well behaved. You're like, of course, we hired doggone problems. I already used that joke, but I didn't get the next line this time I got last time. All right, well, this is Gummy. Come here, Dinkers. There's a grocery store chain in the Midwest called Hinky Dinky, and I know one of the owners, so it's kind of funny when you were saying Dinkers. This is their roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.